All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Educators podcast. And I am thrilled to introduce my guest today. She has over 8 years experience teaching kindergarten in some of the most challenging learning environments. She also has extensive experience with learning disabilities, and she can be found all over the interwebs on multiple podcasts dedicated to everything from wrestling to collecting figures. She is the long box crusader PR girl, and she is also a good friend of ours in the top rope squishy community. She has a reputation of being a notorious villain sometimes, but that's outside the classroom. In the classroom, she is in friendship circles. She is awesome. She's a rock star. I'm talking about my guest at this time, Courtney Holland. Courtney, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Mind Runner.
Yeah, I go by Mind Runner on the interwebs a lot in my mental health
Yeah,
podcast, but I go by Mr. Burden on the Educators podcast because, and it's funny because I separated the two for a while because I didn't want my students to find the Mind Runner side of me. You know what I mean?
gotcha, yeah.
I had to kind of separate those personalities. On Mr. Burden is very, very positive and supportive, and very pro. Like, hey, puppy dogs and ice cream. And then there's the Mind Runner side that kind of goes a little dark sometimes. So, but anyways, now that those personalities are really starting to merge, so I'm not sure which personality is going to take hold. I'll probably be Mind Runner and Mr. Burden. Who knows? Anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But we're here to talk about education. I'm excited because we touched base through Top Rope Squishy, and
Yeah.
the podcast came up, and I was excited to talk to you from the perspective where you came from. Tell us a little bit about your experience in education, and how did those years in kindergarten go for you?
Well, actually, kindergarten was great. When my students, I had some special cases. I had one child that I helped like feed through a feeding tube at lunchtime. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that aspect, and then I had another child who would be catheterization throughout the day. So there's that aspect, and
Mm-hmm.
they'll forever have my heart because they're my
Yes.
babies.
Yes.
And
And,
so
mm-hmm.
um and I got my associate degree at Patrick Henry Community College because, as you know, a lot of schools don't push special education students to go further in their education.
Wow. Wow. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that there's a because it seems like there's a big need for special education teachers.
Yeah. Um I don't know. I know my special education teachers were amazing. They pushed me to go to college because as a student in special education, you're just never pushed to go further with your education.
Wow.
And that's a big thing, and I wanted to prove the naysayers wrong.
Good. Good.
Cause I was one that was told that I would never graduate at high school, and I did. I was in the top 40 of my class in 2000, and then I went on to my local community college. Took me 4 years to get a associate degree in teaching, and therefore led me to be a teacher's aide. But we were more like the teachers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, any classroom where you speak, the teacher's aide are as much a part of the classroom as the teacher, and often it's. I think every classroom. I know a lot in our district. It's typically only the kindergarten classrooms that have a teacher's aide, but I think every grade level, at least in elementary school, needs a teacher's aide, just because of the class sizes, and the need. There seems to be a larger there seems to be a larger amount of special needs students as well. And do you feel like, do you see kind of that the kids are coming to the classroom, more kids are in need of special needs, not just the physical, but like emotional and mental special needs?
Yes, I do. I actually had a student that would like I would have to sit with her during the day and just keep her like time on task and
Mhm.
be like, we're doing math now, so you need to get this out and I'll help you with what you need. So
That's good. And has your experience being a student helped you as a teacher's assistant?
yes, it has. It really has. If I wasn't pushed to go the route I went, I don't know what I would have done.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think do you think that sometimes some students are just written off, like they're
I
not going to succeed?
Yes, I really believe that they're especially if you have a learning disability, they're they don't look at you like, oh, this student can go to college, they can do whatever they want. And I had teachers that pushed me to make me better.
Hmm. You need that support, and I feel like that's what teaching is
Yes.
giving everybody the chance to be the best version of themselves. That's such a sad thing to hear, that to tell a student that you'll never do this, or you'll never. I mean, granted, I'm never going to play in the NBA, but that's different. I mean, I have a terrible jump shot, more than anything, and I'm huffing him. I can't even do half court. But it's there's something to that, though. I feel like, and I hope that there's more of a shift. Are you still a teacher's assistant now at this time?
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, they where I live, they cut all the teachers' aid funding. So yeah,
Wow.
we gave it 8 years, and but when you're an educator, you'll always be an educator no matter what. So
Do you feel like it's a calling?
it was a calling for me because when I was little, I would say, "Hey, I'm gonna be a teacher when I grow up,"
Hmm.
and I did it.
And look at you now, and and there were people that did push you, that told you that you could do it, but were there a lot of people telling you that you couldn't?
Right, yes. Because I was in like I said, I was in special education program and they seem not to push them like they deserve to be pushed. They need
Mhm.
somebody to believe in them.
Absolutely. How do you manage your how did you learn to manage your learning disability?
I had good cheerleaders, I had a good support system, which would be my family. So I mean if you have your support system you can do anything. So yep, I managed it, and I just there was some things I got extra help with, like I got extra time on tests
Mhm.
because it was slower for me to if I go at a fast pace, I notice my grades weren't as good. But if I go at a slower pace, I'll get the job done.
Yeah, my experience, some of my best students were usually the last ones to finish an assessment. I had this one girl was notorious for being the last person to like by an hour to finish an assessment, but she was always getting the top score. And and I always try to tell the students, it's not a race. It's an accuracy test, and you want to be able to take your time, and not just, and I feel like everybody has something that they have to overcome, some more severe than others. But I do you feel like more emphasis, or people are stressing more about like the standardized testing versus focusing on a student's growth as a student?
Yes, I do. I believe our children should be children, especially in elementary school,
Mhm.
because every week we were given like the benchmark tests.
Hmm.
Every week they would do that. I think our children should be allowed to be children and not robots.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time and place for assessments, but when you're testing
Mhm.
the kids all the time, it's and I feel like you can get just as much of an assessment out of an anecdotal note or like an observation. Like I taught third grade for most of my teaching career, and when I would bring students to my table, I'd have like 5 or 6 at a time, but that's where I felt like I could assess better than giving them a test, because for one, some students have test anxiety, where they freeze up when you give them a piece of paper or they go online to take a test. But if you sit down in front of them, they can tell you what they know or show you what they know. And it just seems like we're missing the boat on that. um what are some, I bet you had some interesting experiences in kindergarten when those babies came to your door.
Yes,
What
I did.
I mean, you love them, but I'm sure there's some times where there's been some real fun moments. What are some of your favorite stories from kindergarten?
Well, I did have to end up potty training one of my kindergartners
Wow.
before. Yeah, so it was like, okay, it's time for so and so to go to the bathroom so we can get him in regular underwear. So there's that. I had one child who refused to get off the bus every morning, so they stuck me with him as being his buddy, and I think he had a lot of anxiety about being in a new environment and
Hmm.
away from home.
Yeah, like that separation anxiety.
Yes. Some of my fond memories are when I was student teaching. I got the award, No Child Left Behind award. So there, that
Congratulations.
thank you.
You're not a
So
complete heel, I guess.
no, no, but these children, especially when you deal like with a inner city school,
Hmm.
like I did, they need somebody to believe in them, and I did that. One
Absolutely.
day I might be your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother, whatever you needed me to be. I was there. Most of my children called me mama, though.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, you don't even, because you don't know, some of these kids, you might be their biggest parental influence, their most positive parental influence. I've had students that I find out their living condition, and the mom is working so many jobs, she's barely home, the dad's not in their life at all, and you find out that they, like, you are essentially raising them. And I love what you said, when you're in school, you're the mom, the dad, you're the nurse, the psychologist, the doctor, the game show host, because sometimes you have to
right.
entertain entertain. That's so cool. That's such a testament that they call you mama, and that's such a cool thing. Have you had? I'm sure you've had a lot of moments of those breakthrough aha moments where they finally get it.
Yes, I did have great moments like that too. Like, uh, let's say one student was not like couldn't sit still.
Hmm.
So when he or she sat still, uh, I would say, good job doing your work and concentrating too, because that was their main issue, the concentration issue. And I had the same student was on medicine
Hmm.
for like ADHD or ADD.
Hmm.
So, and there was times when they would come to school and they not have not received their medicine.
I've
So
seen
you
those.
got
Yeah,
you got those aha moments that you appreciate too.
that's good that and that you're able to manage that. What do you think is very most important when, well, I guess with every, I was going to say with teaching students with special needs, but really I guess it would apply to teaching any student. what do you think is most important for teachers to remember or to practice?
The thing to me uh that the absolute most thing is you believe in your children, you treat them with kindness and
Mm-hmm.
respect and love, because that's what I did. And I knew, I even, like, I knew my kids needed hugs, so I would go by and just hug them. It's just that simple thing of just trusting your gut and your instinct,
Mm-hmm.
but also remember this is a child that needs you, and they will remember you when they grow older. I still have my old kids coming up to me in Walmart saying, "Hey,
Hey, mama.
yep,
See, that's so cool. See, forget Teacher of the Year awards, forget all these accolades. That is the best award when they remember you, when they see you outside or they come back to say hi. To me, that's a sign of that you reached that student, and it's they're not going to remember. They're not going to remember a standardized test that they took. They're not going to remember some they're not going to remember some score that they got on some assessment. They're going to remember the feeling. They're going to remember how they felt in learning from you. That's what they're going to remember, you being mama. And I think
right,
that's what these kids really need. And it's interesting. I love how you said that you got to put your arms around. You got to love these kids because they know when you're being fake. They know if
right.
you're just regurgitating something just to teach them. They got to know that you truly have their best interest at heart. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree, because the kids nowadays need to know that you're loving, supportive, and caring. And I've seen some situations where I'm like, what are you doing in the education spectrum of this?
Yeah. I know there's some teachers that maybe have taught too long and they've kind of gotten burnt out, but
Hmm.
then there's some that probably got into teaching with the wrong expectations. Most of my colleagues, though, that are still teaching today or have taught, they were in it for the right reasons. They were good, but I think a lot of the ones that have left, they've left because of the way that the up bureaucracy above them has really
Right.
made it hard. When it comes to behavior management, classroom management, there's a lot of times IEPs have to factor in. What are some strategies that were useful to you when dealing with students that had IEPs or pushing for a student to get accommodations if they
Um,
needed it?
I would say, I would find, like, my student that had ADHD or ADD. Um, I would find that hands-on activities work better for her,
Hmm.
especially in math. Like, cause say you got like 5 cubes and here's 3 more, you need to add them on to that stack of cubes,
Yeah.
and then you count one, so on and so forth. That strategy worked well. Now there's some strategies that don't work at all.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. You gotta find the right. You gotta differentiate the way you
mhm,
teach, and I feel like that's true for every kid. There's kinetic learners, there's visual learners. I've had kids that stare at me with a blank stare when I'm teaching one way, but then I break out the Unifix cubes and they're stacking the cubes and they get it. It's like, oh, like you see that light bulb pop on.
yeah.
if you were if you were in charge of your district's education system, what would you change, and what would you continue to keep?
I would continue to keep teachers' aid because we are vital for that classroom
Hmm.
and vital to the kids. Uh, and I would change how many times they give out tests, because we not only give out benchmark tests. You got the PAT program that we do. The That's our standardized test to see where which level, if they're high, low, or medium. So that's what I would change, and I would make learning fun again, I believe.
Amen. Absolutely. I it kills me because how we a lot of the lessons that a lot of the stuff that the education department pushes down is very sterile. It's very it's not considering you gotta consider the kids you're teaching, and you gotta be up on what they're into. You're not gonna reach a kid. You're not going to reach a kid using something from the 80s if they're not into it. You got to find, like, you're going to have your kids that are into Harry Potter. You're going to have your kids that are into Fortnite, and you got to almost teach them and use those interests to help build their interest into that. And I agree. I wish we had more teachers assistants in our school buildings. What do you think, though? What have been some challenges, or what do you think that most people that aren't familiar with the education system get wrong about teachers and teaching?
I think they look at us as like, okay, they're going to teach my kid, but they're not human or something like that. That's what I've seen with my experience. It's just we're adults just like you, and sometimes the parent is afraid to talk to the teacher or teacher aide about how well their kid is doing or not doing.
And is it important to reach out to the? Do you feel like it's important to reach out to the parents, or do you feel like only reach out when there's a problem?
No, I think you should always be reach out and communicating with your class students and their parents to see, like, they can be like, well, how can I help you in the classroom? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's something that you don't see anymore in the education system.
What year, around what time did you stop your teacher's aide? What about what?
Um, the year was 2008. That was my last year, and I had started in, let's see, I think it was 2004 I started teaching, and then 2008, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there? Do
Yeah.
you do you feel like today? I mean, are you still connected in any way to education today?
Yes, I am. I have a cousin who's gonna actually homeschool my little cousin, so she will be reaching out to me throughout the year, like if she needs help and stuff, because she knows I have that educational background,
Mm-hmm.
as well as she is in the medical field. So there's that.
Are you Why did she give her reasons why she's preferring to homeschool?
Yeah, she said that the school system doesn't believe in like what she believes in.
I'm
So,
s-
and I
mhm.
understand that.
Yeah, I do. There seems to be and I almost feel like COVID may have enhanced this or shed a light on. I know that a lot of parents I've talked to pulled their kids out and went the homeschool route. Do you do you see education evolving? Do you see more parents doing that, or pulling out of a public education system
I
going
see
forward?
more. I see more people unfortunately pulling out their kids from schools, because like you might have your say your kids a like middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bullying in middle school, so there might be that situation where the parent doesn't feel like your student fits there anymore, so they pull them out. I do agree with homeschool too, but I guess the only problem I have with that is the social aspect, but
Mhm.
there are different aspects to getting that social. Like she'll take her to the playground, she takes her to church every Sunday, so you get, as long as social aspect is there, they'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's something. I just had a thought listening to you. It's kind of funny how we the argument for public education is versus homeschooling is that students need that social interaction, but then and yet throughout the day we get on their case if they're talking to each other, like if they're if they're socializing other than working on an assignment together in a group work, if they're socializing unless it's during recess or lunch, it's like, we're taking that away from them. And I do feel like it's insane to expect a kid to sit in a desk for 5 hours. Yeah, that's why we try to get up and move as much as possible. We go to recess and we touch grass, as I say. But
Yeah.
I always tell them, the kids like this. So I would say, all right, it's time for us to go touch some grass, because usually we're they're on their Chromebooks for a while,
Mhm.
and then I say, all right, kid, we got to go touch some grass, and they know what that means. But I I feel like you could still kind of get that with homeschooling if your kids, if there's other kids in the neighborhood, or you take them to the park, or you take them to other locations. There, yeah, I feel like we that's something that can be overcome. And there continues to, I mean, I think bullying is going to be something that's going to always happen in a school setting. You can be a anti-bullying advocate, but bullies are going
Yeah.
to be bullies. You're going to still,
Yeah.
that's, I think that's the nature of kids at that age.
And to me, I was bullied because I was different, and so it just made me tougher. Got this tough skin over here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Don't mess with Courtney. She didn't take it. She don't
Nope.
take it. She'll give you the stunner.
Yes.
I can imagine that, somebody trying to mess with you in school, and you just holler off and give them the Courtney 316.
Yes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break from solving all of the world's problems to tell you about a good friend of mine and a service she's offering. Are you tired of feeling like your dream financial future is out of reach? Are you struggling with overwhelming debt, trying to pay off your home early, or simply wanting to give more? Well, my good friend Vanessa Rudder Jackson is here to help. An educator and military veteran, Vanessa is here to guide you through the confusion and make your dream financial future a reality. With her certified financial coaching services, she'll help you create a personalized plan that sets you up to win with money. As an educator and a mother of two, Vanessa understands the challenges of scraping by and stretching paychecks. She's been there, and she knows how to navigate the financial landscape to help you thrive. Don't let financial stress hold you back any longer. Take the first step towards financial freedom today with Rudder Jackson Financial Coaching. Reach out to Vanessa today for a free 45-minute consultation at varudder34@gmail.com, or go to tinyurl.com/RJ Money Coach. That's varudder34@gmail.com or tinyurl.com/RJ Money Coach. Remember, it's never too late to take control of your finances and achieve your dreams. Start your journey to financial freedom with Rudder Jackson Financial Coaching today. All right, now let's get back to solving the world's problems with the most charming host on the interwebs. Well, that's cool. And a lot of kids too, though, they spend so much time on social media. I noticed in my
Mhm.
last couple classes, groups of students, they were very they were they were much better, much more comfortable with the Chromebooks because every student had a Chromebook in our district, but they struggled with a lot of social interactions. Their coping skills were almost nil. Yeah, they some of the issues that would arise were very things that could have been resolved easily, and their social interactions were almost stunted. How do you think technology is affecting students now?
Uh, this is my only problem with social media. I think children under the age of 13 should not be allowed to have social media. Wait till you're about uh, 2022 because there's been some issues
Mhm.
with students from this school. Oh, I don't like that girl, so that school's gonna beat up this school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. If it anything, it needs to be heavily monitored by parents. But then again, if parents are too busy, or in some cases not aware of their kids, because but I hate to point the finger at parents, because there are situations where there's so much on the parents' plate that it's really
Right,
difficult to constantly be watching with your kids. But then again, that's where those conversations with your kids come in. Yeah, those kind of, like, just like the best way to stop bullying is to have those conversations with your students about that. You can't stop a bully, but you can create an environment that eliminates that, as makes it less frequent. Does that make sense?
right. Yes, it does make sense.
And I think the same thing when if you have those important conversations with your kids as a parent, about how to handle yourself online, and sometimes they have to learn the hard way too. It's sad, but I I I I part of me agrees with you, because I used to I used to tell my third grade kids, they would, whenever there's something like so and so likes me would come up, or like this, I'd say, don't be in such a rush to grow up. Please don't even think about that kind of stuff till you're 20, 25. Just please hang on to your childhood as much as possible, because before you know it, you're gonna have bills.
Yes,
You're gonna have a mortgage or an apartment to rent. Yeah, I wish kids weren't in such a hurry to grow up, because it's a tough world out there. Tough
it
world.
is really tough, tough, tough.
Now, a little bit more. I wanted to about social media, though. There are some positives I found, and I feel
Hmm.
like that students can find, just like joining a sport, an extracurricular activity, like whether it's chess club or football or cheerleading or track and field. Um, I feel like the online you can find positive communities. You can find people, like-minded people, where, like, when I was in high school, I was one of the only wrestling fans. Like, there weren't very many pro wrestling fans. But now, like, I talk to pro wrestling fans all over the world, and it's there's a growing community. So a couple of questions for you. One, were you involved in any extracurricular activities as a student? And two, do you feel like there are some positives to online communities, both for students and for adults?
Yes, I was. I was on Key Club. I was and then I didn't get to do my athletic thing. I ran track and field in 11th and 12th grade because I wasn't cleared medically to run yet. Um so you go over that, and yes, I do think like community like Top Rope Squishies community, we're all family there.
Yes.
That is a positive to the wrestling community. There's communities out there for like parents, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a NASCAR community I'm part of. I
Very
mean,
cool.
yeah, and it's just like whatever you're into, go for that positive person or that positive group. Don't go just because Billy or Sue is doing it.
Yeah. And research it too, because like I've found communities and I've gotten in there and they turn out to be very toxic, and I'm like, I'm out of here. Oh, I'll see you later. That kind of thing. But
Yeah.
when you do find, but also when you do find like using Top Rope Squishy, that the family there. I mean, we know each other, we joke around with each other, we
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing in a lot of other, for kids can find, with parents' approval, kids can find communities where they can instead of meeting each other on Fortnite and having that, bro, you sus, bro, which they're gonna do, but
Yeah.
having that more positive influence, I think is important. But I do think it requires a lot of parental oversight, to
Yes.
make sure everything is on the up and up with everybody. That's cool though. You did run track and field for a little bit.
Yes, sir.
What did you run?
Okay, so I ran the 100-meter yard dash, and then I started doing the 200-yard meter dash.
What?
Yeah.
Courtney's got some steps.
Yes. I wasn't the fastest on our team, but guess what? I had the other teams rooting for me. I was always finished last, but I would shave off time of my time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You always got better. You did beat the Courtney from last time. If you're beating who you were last time, then you're winning. In my opinion, you're always the best person to compete against is yourself.
Right.
And always
not somebody else, because comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly. Yep. If I compare myself to Michael Jordan or LeBron James, I'm not gonna play basketball. But if I compare myself to how I played yesterday, and I finally did get that 3-point shot, then yay me! Good for me!
Yeah.
Woohoo! That's just an important lesson to teach kids. Do you feel like kids? How do you think teachers could help students not be so worried about each other? Like how to get them to invest in their own personal growth.
I see, like, I would want the teacher, like, I was out there, like, if my group was saying I had a group playing basketball, I would go out there and get hands on with them and say, oh, that's a good shot, and maybe suggest something else they could do to help their shot.
Yeah, you got to throw in that positive reinforcement, because if you're only telling them the negatives and that's all they hear, the next time you say something,
they're gonna get down and not continue it. Yeah, and we want our students to flourish.
How important is positive reinforcement with teaching?
Positive reinforcement should be the number one thing within teaching. I think, because if you say, for instance, you have a teacher that, like, all right, well, let's go on and do this. No, tear that up, and not do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's different things, because I had a teacher who actually tore up my work in front of me, and I ended up having to go through the principal and everything, and I wound up switching to a different elementary school.
I can't imagine doing that.
I can't either, but that's what they did.
What do you think drives some teachers to get like that? Or is it because I hesitate? Most of the teachers, I would argue 95% of my colleagues, I'm not saying I got along with 95% of them.
Right.
I'd say I got along with 85% of them. And that 15% probably thought I got along with them. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, like, it only seemed like there was maybe one or two teachers out of a building of 30 that I felt like were not in the right profession. Most of my colleagues
Right.
were very student oriented,
Right.
to their own ability. I mean, there were some that were they everybody had their own teaching style, but nobody was really in this to not be. Nobody was in it to just to cruise, to take it easy. There were
Right.
one or two exceptions, and those two exceptions usually didn't last long. But I have
There.
seen some
Hmm.
teachers like that were good start to really like things start to get to them. Like things. What do you think
Right.
about that?
Well, I was gonna say, I I had maybe one or two like teachers that were not in there for the children; they were in there for the check.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to me, it should be all about educating the students and not the check.
Yeah, because for starters, the check isn't much.
Yeah, the check is hardly anything yet,
You're
y'all.
for the check. There's a lot of jobs that pay more for you to do a lot less.
Right.
What were some of your responsibilities as a teacher's assistant, aside from changing? And I want to ask you, actually, I want to before I get into that, I want to ask you: do you feel like changing diapers is that now an expectation for teachers?
It should not be an expectation for teachers, but don't be surprised if your student comes in and is not potty trained.
Is that becoming more common? You think?
Well, when I was in the system, that only happened to me once, so I hope it's not becoming common.
Yeah, I
You
would
know
hope
what I
that
mean?
I hope by kindergarten you can at least have your own pull-ups or something.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
take care of business yourself a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there is I guess there is a reason why most kindergarten classrooms either have a bathroom in their class, like adjacent to their classroom, or like right by the
Right.
room. But that's got to be. Um, what were some of your responsibilities as a teacher's assistant?
Well, one of my responsibilities, and I don't know why I love this, but I had to make up my own lesson.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then I loved grading my students' papers. I don't know why. I guess it's just the teacher in me.
Yep.
And then, just the one-on-one time that they got with me, because sometimes we would break off into groups. Like, all right, they will actually change classes in kindergarten. And
Oh
like,
wow.
so the lower group goes like to this person, the middle group goes to this person. So yeah.
So there was a little bit they were learning the transitions early. I know that
Yeah.
like sometimes like fourth and fifth grade or even third grade they would team teach where one teacher would be a specialist in math and science and the other in language arts and history, and they would switch middle of the day. But it seems like in kindergarten that's kind of I guess it's kind of cool that they're learning that change in environment so quickly. It's that I've talked with some teachers assistants today and different districts, and
Mhm.
they're the underlying concern that most of them share is that there's so much being placed on the teachers and teachers assistants and that are outside of what a teacher should be concentrated on, and like that we're losing additional support staff where we used to have like a secure like having different like a security team or a
Mhm.
special needs team, or and it seems like there's a lot more being pushed into the classroom and put on the teachers plates. um do you feel like that there is a teacher shortage? Would you be interested in going back into the classroom?
Um. Oh, good question. I do feel like there's a teacher shortage or people going into education for the wrong reasons and
Hmm.
not the right reasons like we did.
Yeah.
Um would I ever go back? No, because it would be rough, too stressful on my health situation. So
Yeah. You got to respect that. I mean, and that's the thing too. Is it's. I mean, I look. My gray hairs came from teaching. I just, of course, I always would joke because I had. I remember distinctly this. I had taken my students at the time up to the cafeteria for lunch, and I saw one of my former robotics mentors, robotics club students. Her mom was sitting outside with this other woman, and I said, "Oh, hey, Mrs. So and so," and I was talking with her, and then I said, "So how's Marissa doing?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Why don't you ask her yourself?" And then I looked to the right, the woman she was sitting next to was Marissa, and instantly I felt my hair go white. Like I all of a sudden I said, I felt like I aged 10 years in that moment. But it's because I always think of my kids as those third graders, those fourth
right.
graders. I always think of them like I don't think about them going off and becoming the adults that they're going to be. And one of my kids went started his freshman year in college, and I'm like, no, no, I was teaching you
I was
fractions.
just teaching you,
What are
yeah.
you doing? And he's like, hey, Mr. Burden. And I'm like, no, don't grow up. But you can't stop it. You can only do what you can when they're in front of you. Yeah, you can only,
Right.
okay. What are some ways that you made learning fun? It sounded like you could make your own lessons. And how did you put the Courtney spin on your lessons?
Well, the Courtney spin would be like, all right, if I knew this person like SpongeBob, for
Yeah.
instance, I would try to use that as an example for them. And then I would try to be hands on with them, and like I said, the math cubes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I was always going to Walmart and see, like, I had one student with autism, and I would try to pick up little things that would help him or her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes like a little fidget thing or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah, something to, and like how many Krabby Patties? If SpongeBob made 12 Krabby Patties and you took 9 away, how many Krabby Patties are left? Those little things just really mean a lot to the kids because I feel like they have an interest, like they can relate to it. If they're thinking SpongeBob or they're thinking, Squidward went to the market at 12:15. He came back at 12:30. Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Well, uh, want to ask you a little bit before we hop off about the Long Box Crusade. What is the Long Box Crusade?
Well, the Long Box Crusade is my comic book brothers. I call them my comic book brothers. They consist of Delvin, Jason, and Jarrett, which are brothers, Pat, and we once a month we do a show called Doing It Live, and I'm in the chat. And my responsibility for them is to pick numbers for our monthly giveaway prizes. So
Very cool.
we talk about movies like Sherlock Holmes. We talk about comic books. Like, there's a show called New Warriors. Who
Oh, very
which
cool. Hmm.
So yeah.
Nice, nice. And again, that goes to that same kind of community. And are they're obviously not local, right? This is something that you met
No,
online.
nobody's local.
Isn't that amazing? Like you and I are
It
having this
really is.
conversation across the country, and all these it's bringing together so many people online. So I think there are a lot of positives about online. Of course, um, I can't even say you're across the Twitterverse. You're across the Xverse now because I guess it's X instead of Twitter. I have a question too because weren't they doing the Twitter files? Weren't a couple of people doing something called the Twitter files?
They were.
So did they have to change it to the X files now? I mean, is that?
I wonder if they had to change it to the X Files, and I wonder who Sully is.
Yeah, it's Scully and Mulder. Which one's Mulder and which one's Scully? Well, Courtney, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for hanging with me. I'd love to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I'd love to have you back. Of course, we'll see each other in the Top Rope Squishy chat, and I'm gonna have to check out the Long Box Crusade as well. And I'd love to have you pop on my mental health podcast too, and talk a little more as well. But this has been awesome. Any final any advice to the teachers and teachers' assistants that are about to? Here we are, getting ready to start August. The countdown to the back of the classroom. Any advice to our educators out there?
My advice is to be loving, caring, and kind to your students, and make sure you're in education for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons.
Amen. Excellent advice. Excellent. Well, for Courtney Holland, this is Mr. Burden, a.k.a. Aaron, a.k.a. Mind Runner. Thank you for joining us for Educators Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Catch full episodes of the Educators Podcast every Thursday at 4 p.m. Real educators with the real issues in education. Thank you so much for watching, and of course, take care of yourself. Jeans passes for anyone who likes, shares, and comments on this video. Have a great week.